Oh my gosh, check this out. It is a Faux Push Tin Star. Look at all the rusty, weathered goodness. It looks like it's 100 years old. Would you believe me if I told you it was made out of cardstock and cinnamon? It absolutely is, and I'm going to teach you how to make one, so stay tuned.
All right, so let's get started. First off, we're going to need 6 pieces of paper or cardstock or poster board, all the same size. Technically, there's only 5 arms to our star, but we need the 6th piece to make our pattern, and it'll all make sense here in a second. So what you want to do is you want to make sure that you have 6 squares exactly the same. Mine are 11 by 11, but you can make your stars any size you want. However, I will say this, I wouldn't go too terribly big because the pattern will take a long time to cut out, and I wouldn't go too small because when you fold the paper or the cardstock, it'll get really firm and it'll be difficult to fold. Maybe your hands are a little bit stronger than mine, but I have a square that is 11 by 11. You are more than welcome to do any size. Like I said, Dollar Tree has these 12 by 12 cardstock pieces that would absolutely work. They come in a multitude of colors and you can paint them any color you want. Dollar Tree also has very large poster board. I believe these are 22 inches wide. So I'm just cutting 11-inch squares out of mine. So if you were to do the poster board, you would need 2 pieces. So I cut mine down. But like I said, you can use any cardstock. You could even use paper if you wanted to. But if you plan on painting your star, you're going to want something a little bit heavier like the cardstock. So like I said, my squares are 11 by 11. And now what we're going to do is we're going to fold one corner to the opposite corner. So what we're going to do is we're just going to fold it over and we're going to match corners. And you want it to be pretty close to on point, and then you'll push down your crease. And then you're going to fold it open and you're going to take a pencil. This step is optional, but it helps me when I fold. So I just mark right in the crevice, right in the fold, a little pencil line, and down here a little pencil line. So now we're going to take this corner and we're going to fold to the middle. And you want to make sure you catch your points. So when you fold it over, you just want to help roll that over. And you're going to push that right into go all the way to the point. And then you're going to flip it around and do the same on the other side. Push all the way to the point. Now we're going to take this and we're going to fold over the flaps. Just fold it right down the middle. And now we're going to take this flap and fold it to the middle. Fold it up. And this is where it starts to get a little bit, the folds are a little bit on the firmer side. So that's why I say you don't want to go too small with your star. Either that, if you go smaller, you're going to want a little bit thinner paper. And then you're going to fold the other side. Fold it right up, right to the middle. So when you open this up, you have a little bit of a flap on the inside. You're going to just open that up. And then this becomes one arm of your star. Ta-da! I'm going to remove my sticker. You're going to do this to all 6 pieces of your paper. So all of your squares you're going to fold just like that. And then you're going to take the 6th square and you're going to open it up. So now we're going to cut off one of these flaps, just this outer edge right here, and this is going to become your pattern piece. So this piece was like that, and see how this is your fold right here. So you're gonna cut that piece off. So that's what I did. I just cut that piece off right there. See how I did that, guys? When you fold this open, you're gonna cut right along there to this point, and you're gonna cut all the way to this point. And that's what I did here. So you're gonna remove that piece just like that. And then this becomes your pattern piece. And I went ahead and did my own pattern. I just did like a little sunburst pattern. And what I did is I just did 1/4 of an inch line all the way around my edges. So I put a line here, here, and here. So I'll quickly do that. But you guys get to decide what pattern you want to do. If you just want to do a completely random pattern, that's totally up to you. So all I did was I gave myself a little bit of a guide. I just did 1/4 of an inch edge all the way around. So I made a mark, and now we're just going to make a line. And I'm just going to make a little border all the way around my star. And it doesn't have to be perfect. And now I have a little 1/4 inch border all the way around my star. And now what we're going to do is just make a point every 1/4 of an inch. Dollar Tree's got these really cool little, I'm not sure what they're, just these little pokey tools. They're pretty sharp, so be careful, but they're perfect for this particular project. So I'm gonna get, but you also want to make sure you protect the surface of your work table. So I'm gonna grab, I have a little mat, a little self-healing mat. So I'm just gonna stick it on top of that, just like that. And now you can go along every 1/4 of an inch, or you get to decide how close or how far apart your dots are gonna be. And I did, mine are about 1/4 of an inch. But all you got to do is get your ruler, line up your line, and just let the ruler tell you how far apart. And you don't have to go real deep. You're just going to mark your marks. So there's going to be one right there, one right there. And I'm just following along my pencil line, but every 1/4 of an inch, I'm making a little poke at every 1/4 of an inch. And then you're going to go all the way around your border. And then once you're done marking all the way around your border, you're going to go back and you're going to poke through. Now be careful, but you're going to poke through your cardboard and make a larger hole. So you're just going to watch your fingers on the other side, but you're going to poke all the way through so you have a nice sized hole. These little holes is just a little catch right there. But now you get to go back through and just start punching holes all the way around. And you're going to go all the way around and then come back to where you started. And then you'll have something that looks something like that. And then I went ahead and just did a design in the center, but you can follow any starburst sign. I just found center in the middle, I've just made a circle in the middle and then a smaller circle, and I just eyeballed mine. You can get out your ruler and measure, but I just kind of put the starburst right in the middle of where it's the thickest. And I just did a circle and then a smaller circle, and then I just did little lines, and then I did one long line. And I just took my ruler and I just went and I just followed my ruler right down to the point. you guys can do any design. You can do a little heart, you can do just little circles, or you can just do just some lines, you know, just a line here, and then you could do a simple line here, and then a simple line here. It's all gonna be really pretty. So you guys get to decide what your star is gonna look like. But really, just mine, I just went with something very simple. I just got something that had a nice size circle. I just traced a quarter and then just went around it every quarter of an inch. And you can even eyeball it, really, guys. It's gonna be fine, because then this becomes your pattern, and then you're gonna put this pattern on every single side of each of the 5 arms. So now what you're gonna do, once you're done creating your pattern piece, you're gonna come over to your folded arms. And again, guys, you're more than welcome to make your lines so you can see where you're gonna line up your patterns, because it's white on white, so it's kind of difficult to see, but this is totally optional. I'm just making a mark for where I'm going to put my pattern. So now you're going to take your pattern and you're going to set it right down in that spot. So the pattern will be here, and there'll be a pattern here. So now all you got to do is just take your time and line up your pattern. It doesn't have to be perfect. You just kind of want it centered along the spine in the middle of the arm. And you're just going to take your pokey tool, and you're just, once again, just going to go through and just poke through all your pre-made holes. You're just going to take your time and just poke your holes and just go along and just poke, poke, poke. And you're going to trace your whole design onto your star arm. And then once you're done with one side, you're going to flip over and do it on this side. And don't forget your center pattern. And once you think you have your pattern transferred, what you're going to do is just keep your hand on one side and flip up your pattern piece and see if you got all your dots. And then do it on the other side. So put your hand down on that, hold it flat, and peek underneath and make sure you got all your spots, because it's really easy to miss a dot or two. But even if you did, that's okay too. You can just go back in and kind of see, I missed one right here. I missed one right in the middle right there. And then flip it over and do the other side. And the only thing you need to worry about really is just kind of make sure that they're kind of side by side, but they don't have to be perfect. And then transfer your pattern. All right, I'm gonna check my pattern, make sure I got it all. Looks like I missed these ones. Check this side. Looks like I got it all. So now that you got your little dots, now you're gonna go back through and you're gonna poke all the little dots with your pokey stick. You're just gonna go right over the pattern. And you're just gonna punch out all the holes that you just poked through. Just take your time. So you're gonna check your work, make sure you didn't miss any, and that looks pretty good. All right, so once you get your pattern transferred to all 5 squares of your star, all of the 5 arms, you're going to go ahead and take a pair of scissors and you're going to cut this line right here. And just this line. You're going to do this line and you're going to do this line right here. You're just going to cut right down to the point. And you're going to cut this line right here. You're going to start all the way in and go right to this point. Okay, all right, so now we're going to fold these over and this down and fold those up. So you have a shape that looks like that. So let me do that again. So now you have a shape that looks like this. So you're going to fold these arms over. You're going to fold this flap down flat, and you're going to fold the points over just like that. So you're going to have a shape that looks like that. Now this pops out like that. So it starts to make it a 3D shape. And you're like, oh, this doesn't look anything like a star. Trust the process, trust the process. Now I'm going to take my stapler. Now you're more than welcome to use hot glue or any glue to stick these flaps down and this flap down. But I'm going to use a stapler because I find that it's a little bit easier and a little bit more stable. But you absolutely could use anything you want to use. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to staple these flaps together first. And I'm just going to staple right down, right in the middle. And then I'm going to staple this flap to this flap. So I'm going to pinch those together. See how that's pinched together like that? It gets a little bit awkward to hold, but you just want to kind of hold it together. And I'm going to staple those down. So now we have a little bit of a 3D shape coming along. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to put 3 staples right along the spine. So I'm going to hold this flat. And then once you have your 3 staples in, you're just going to kind of fold and pinch those staples so it kind of makes a round over shape. So you can kind of, and now you have a shape that looks like that. So then we'll fold these flaps over, and the excess where they're overlapping, we're just going to cut those off. So we'll just cut our flaps a little on the shorter side. So when those flaps fold over, they'll go inside. And then go ahead and fold and staple or hot glue, depending on your method. Go ahead and do it to all 5 arms of your star. And now we're going to assemble all the arms. So I held this arm and this arm together, and I lined those up and I stapled it together. And then I lined this one and stapled it together. But you absolutely could use hot glue. I put them all together. You just want to make sure that you're putting your arms together that the point meets. That's the most important thing, really. You want to see how the very point, this point here, they're all even all the way around. So now we're going to go ahead and add our last arm. So I'm going to just squeeze this arm into this space, tuck that in, and open up our flaps. And you're going to want to make sure that your points are all even, or as even as you possibly can. And I'm just putting my finger right in the crease down here, and I'm pushing my finger towards the center. So I'm going to make sure I got everything lined up, and then I'm going to put a staple right in between, and double check your work. And it looks like it is pretty good right there. See how these points are all lining up for the most part. And then I'm going to staple this arm to that arm and we'll have a complete star. So I'm going to go ahead and open up that flap and make sure that those are pretty even. Put a staple right in there. And we're getting a star, you guys. See how the star's coming together? Now what we're gonna do is we're gonna add a little bit of hot glue and then seal these all together. Push all our flaps down in there just to kind of get them out of our way. What we're gonna do is go ahead and just hot glue or staple at the top. I'm gonna see if I can't staple all the way down. And I'm gonna staple all the way down. All right, once you get all of your arms of your star stapled together, and I just put a couple of staples all the way down, one kind of shallow and then one deeper on all of these sides. I'm gonna go ahead and flip it over and I'm going to hot glue down in these crevices to kind of pull these arms a little bit tighter together. So I'm going to pry it apart just a little bit. I'm going to use my little pokey tool. On the other side there's a little fin shape and I'm just going to kind of set it down in, kind of split so it makes the crack a little bit wider. I'm going to add a little bit of hot glue down in there. And then I'm going to seal it up. And pinch from the other side and then scrape off the excess. You'll just want that to dry. And it's okay if there's a little bit of excess glue. We're going to be putting a paint and texture over the top. But you're just trying to seal that crevice just a little bit better. So there's quite a bit of hot glue in there, so I'm just holding it. I'm just pinching from the inside, and you'll do that to all these cracks. Once again, I'm gonna put my tool down in there, open up the crevice just a little bit, and squeeze some hot glue down in there. All the way down. And you'll wanna squeeze it from the inside and get the excess glue off. And just hold it till it dries. Now you want to go back over and check all the corners to make sure this edge right here needs a little bit of glue. So I'm just going to pop that corner, put a little bit of glue down in there, and then close it up. Make sure I get all the excess glue. All right, guys. So once you have your star all glued together and all the seams sealed, we're going to move on to the paint technique. And I chose to do a weathered push tin, like an actual tin look. So I have a silver metallic paint, which is from Folk Art, and it is this silver. And then I got an apple barrel pewter gray. So I'm just mixing those together with my little Dollar Tree sponge that I cut up, and I'm just kind of dipping it back and forth just with my sponge, and then I'm just going to put it all over my star, and I'm just tap, tap, tap. And then once you get that done, you'll take a foam brush that you can kind of get down in the cracks, and I'm just, again, dipping it down in. And I'm just going to get it right down in the cracks. And just go right down in those cracks. So just take your time. You're going to want to put down a protective surface or just be on a countertop that you can paint on. And I just put a little bit of cardboard down because once we get everything coated in paint, then we're going to sprinkle a little bit of ground cinnamon that'll look kind of like a rust technique. So this is absolutely optional. If you just wanted to paint your star red, blue, or green, you didn't want to do the rusted technique, that's totally fine. That's completely up to you. But what I'm going to do is once I get everything, my whole star, all the front of my star coated in the gray and the silver paint, I'm going to sprinkle some cinnamon over the top of that wet paint, and it's going to kind of give it like a crunchy, rustic, weathered look. So it's really a really cool technique. You just want to make sure that your paint isn't super drippy, because you don't want it to be drippy because it'll kind of weaken your paper. And that's why we're using cardstock, so it can take this paint. And get right down in those cracks. Don't worry about getting everything perfect the first time. We're gonna, after we have all of our star coated in the gray paint, we're gonna go over it with the cinnamon and then let everything dry. And then we'll do a second coat. You just kind of want to be gentle with your star, because it is paper and it is glued and stapled. It's not a metal star, so you just kind of support the arms with your hand while you're tapping your paint on. You want to make sure that you get all down in the seams, because those will show. And I got my first coat on, and I'm going to go over the gray with a little bit more silver. I'm just going to add a little bit of silver over the top. I mixed it up, but I want to add just a little bit more silver, just a little bit more of a metallic look. So I'm just going to add a little bit of that metallic over the top, but I'm not going to make it a perfect coat. So some areas of the star will be shiny and some will be a little dull, just like a tin star would be. And remember, this is just the first coat. We are going to go back over it with more paint after this one dries. You can still see a little bit of the white cardstock coming through, but my cardstock is getting a little bit too damp. So I'm going to go ahead and add my cinnamon and then let this dry. Because if you push the cardstock too far, it will start to peel. And now I'm going to go ahead and add a little bit of cinnamon where I want the rust to go. So you can just shake it out of the shaker, and I just got this at the Dollar Tree, and I'm going to use the shaker side, and I'm just going to shake it wherever I want to have a little bit of rust. And I would start out a little on the light side and then just kind of be random with where you want your rust. And I'm just sprinkling the cinnamon wherever I think I want rust. And remember, we're going to go back over this with a second coat. So it's, even if you go a little heavy in some spots, you can bring that back with a little bit of paint. and that just adds really cool texture. If you want, you can even add it to your hand and then just sprinkle it that way if you want it to be a little bit lighter or a little bit more controlled. And then we're going to let that dry. I think that looks pretty good right there. I'm going to go ahead and let that dry. I think I'm going to let it dry overnight, and then I'll come back and I'll do a second coat just how we did the first coat. We're going to mix a couple of the pewter and the silver, and we're just going to dab, dab, dab right over that. All right, let your star dry and we'll be right back. So I let my star dry overnight, and now what we're going to do is we're going to go ahead and add a second coat of both of the gray paints, the pewter and the silver, but this time I'm going to go a little heavier on the silver instead of the pewter. So a little bit of pewter and a little bit more of the silver, and you're just going to go back over your star with in the places that you think are a little bit bare spots, or if you put too much rust, too much of the cinnamon in one spot, then you're just going to cover up that spot. So again, you're just going to take your Dollar Tree sponge that you cut down, and you're just going to dip into your paint and then just start dabbing it on your star. You're just going to dab, dab, dab wherever you see your paper coming through, or if the paint's a little thin and maybe it looks a little like you can see the brush strokes or the sponge marks. You just want to make sure you get everything covered up. And I'm going to go right over some of these rusty areas so it builds up a layer of painted rust. And you want to be careful not to press too hard, because you don't want the first layer, even though it's dried, it is paper, it is cardstock. So you want to make sure that you don't pull, if your sponge is too sticky and you pull up that first layer, then you have to let that all dry again and then go back over it. So you just be very careful, and you don't want to press too hard. And again, you want to support the star's arms with your hand when you're pressing down. And you just start getting this really neat rusty effect. And you guys get to paint your star whatever color you want. So if you wanted to have it like a rusty red, you could do the same thing. Instead of doing the pewter gray and the silver, you could do a red, like a muted, like a matte red, like a barn dark red, and then maybe a slightly metallic red, and do the same thing, mix and match. And then when the paint is still wet, then you can put the cinnamon on top of that. So that would be really pretty, or blue or green. Again, you guys get to make these stars whatever color you desire. Super fun, easy technique. Don't overthink it. You want it to be completely random. So pretty, guys, so pretty. You just want to make sure that you catch any runs or drips, because in my opinion, that's not the look I'm going for. Now, if you want that to be on your star, by all means, you can have your paint extra thick, but I'm just getting it thick enough where it's just covering my cardstock. You just want to be real gentle so you're not pulling up that previous coat. And a real good technique is change the position of your sponge so you're not just going square. You want to rotate your wrist back and forth so you're not getting the same impression back to back, because that will be super uniform, and rust doesn't happen in uniformity. Or at least, not that I've seen. So every now and again, just kind of switch up how your sponge connects. And this would work on wood. This will work on any surface that paint sticks to. So it's not just paper. Any porous surface that you can stick paint to. Just go back over it and make sure you're getting all the heavy drips, because that will dry just like a drip, and that is not the look. Once you think you have all the surfaces coated, just take a real good look and see where you've missed. And I've missed a couple of spots here. So I'm going to go back in and add a little bit more paint. And you can always add a third coat, a fourth coat. There's really, sky's the limit. And that's looking really good, guys.
I can't wait to see your guys' stars. Oh my gosh, I bet they're dynamite. You guys need to send me photos. How are you guys going to hang yours up? Are you going to put it over your hearth, or are you going to put it in your family room? I want to see, guys. I want to see what colors you chose. Did you do something different besides tin or gray? Did you do red or blue? Even maybe a pretty copper color. Oh my gosh, you could do a copper color and then do like a turquoise over the top of that with the cinnamon. So it's like an oxidized copper. Oh my gosh, you guys, that would be gorgeous. Look at that, guys. Oh my gosh. So rusty and weathered looking, and it smells great. Love it. So pretty. Oh, so all right. Now what you're going to do is you're going to go ahead and let that dry again. You can absolutely use a heat tool and just hair dry it on a low setting, or a heat tool, and just, or set it next to a heat source and just let it dry up for a couple of hours or overnight, and then we will go on to the next step. You guys, one thing I should mention, after you've added your second coat of paint, you can absolutely go back in with a little bit more cinnamon and add more rust in places if you wanted to add more texture. You just want to make sure that you do it when the paint is wet so the cinnamon can stick. So you add your paint coat while it's still wet, add the cinnamon, and then let it dry, and then do another coat if you wish. But you can absolutely add more cinnamon to your star. So cute, guys. I have an old heat gun. It's seen, don't ask, it's seen better days, but it works perfectly. So I'm just gonna dry my paint with a heat gun, but you wanna make sure that you don't get your paint too hot, because you can scorch the paint. So if you're using a heat gun, you wanna make sure you're not super close and you're just blowing medium heat onto your paint. So now I have my paint relatively dry. It could go a little bit farther, but it's not coming off on my hands. So now I'm going to pick it up and decide which side I like for the top. So now you get to decide how it's going to stand. So just take a look at your star and see which one you want to be the top. And I think I like that one. Just going to kind of squeeze it a little bit. And I think I like pretty much that shape. But be careful, your cardstock is going to be still damp on the inside. So you don't want to bend it and manhandle it too hard. So now you're going to flip it over. And be careful, because your paint might still be a little bit wet. So you don't want to scrape it on any surface. And you're going to take and open up your flaps. And on the inside, you're going to see these between the arms. You're going to have these where you've stapled them before. You're going to take a hole punch, and I just got mine at the Dollar Tree, just like this. And you're just going to punch a hole in between. You're going to punch a hole through this spot, and then through this one, through this wall, through this wall. And so you can string some lights through the center. So that's what I'm going to do. And I just have a small strand of fairy lights. I think it's about 7 feet long. And I'm just going to string them through those holes, and I'm going to leave a little bit on each arm at the very top, and I'm just going to start threading them through. So you're just going to go right through that wall and pull it through so that your strand sits on the inside. And you want to leave a little bit of lights in this arm, and then you're going to leave a little bit of lights in this arm. You're going to leave a little bit of lights in this arm, and so on and so forth. And there's no real rhyme or reason. And this part is absolutely optional. You don't have to add lights to your star. It's just something that I wanted to do to mine. So we'll just
coil them up and leave a little bit in there. And then we'll thread through that wall and go right through. We're going to go right through there and thread that through. And then we'll go down the arm and then back and thread through and go up the arm and then back, and then we'll thread through. And I forgot to punch my hole in this wall here, so I'll just take my hole punch and punch right through here. Be careful not to punch your wire. And I'll go right through here. So now each arm has, and you want to make sure you fold out your flaps so that the lights sit on the inside. You want your flaps to be open so that the lights go in where the holes are. So open these up. And then just kind of play with the lights and make sure you get about an even amount of lights in each arm. And I just kind of pull the light strand so it stretches, not stretches, but goes all the way to the end. I have about an even amount of wire in each arm. So now what you can do, you can leave it just like that, or you can take a hot glue gun and just tack the wires down into the arm. And I'm just going to glue this wire kind of right in between, right in the spine, right in the crevice. And it probably won't take a whole lot. Just enough to catch that wire. Just let it cool. And you'll do that to every single arm. So I'll stretch this strand out. I'll put a little bit of glue right down in the, and I'm not using a ton of glue because if I ever want to change out my light strand, I can. And I'll have to be careful with this one because this one got pretty fragile, so I might have to glue that a little bit. I got a little bit of a rip right here at the end. This is on the back side, which is okay, but I just want to be mindful and put a little bit of glue there once I get my light strand glued in. In fact, I'll do that right now. Just be careful, it's hot. Stick that right down in there. And last but not least, now I'm just going to add a little bit of glue and then pinch. And I'm not going wild with the glue just because if I ever want to change out these light strands, I can without tearing it up. I'm just putting a little button of glue just to close it up. But you can absolutely use a little bit of double-sided tape. You could use Velcro. I'm just using a little dot of glue, but that'll release. And I just pinch it until it cools. Spin it around, close these up. Just a little dot of glue about the size of a pea just to catch, and then pinch. And then go to the next one, fold it over, just a little dab of glue, and fold over. And then same thing, last one, little dot of glue, fold over and pinch. I love, love, love how this turned out. I'm going to go ahead and flip mine over, flip my star over, and carefully open up these flaps. You don't want to let them rip. If they do, we'll just put a little bit of hot glue where it's torn a little bit. But what you're going to do is these spines in between the arms, you're going to take a pair of hole punch and just punch a hole right in between, so you're making a little pass through for your lights. And then once you punch a hole in each spine, you're going to take a sharp pair of scissors and just snip the board above the hole. So you're going to be making a little keyhole. It's probably difficult to see, guys, but you're just making a little slip. So you're going to pry these apart and you're going to stick your light strand down in there. You can use fairy lights, you can use Christmas lights, any lights will do. You can even stick little LED lights down in here, little candles. I'm going to use Christmas lights. So what I'm going to do is kind of just split the difference. So I'm going to put 3 lights in one arm and so on and so forth until I go all the way around. So I'm going to start on this side and I'm just going to split that wall open and just slip my Christmas lights down in there so it just kind of holds it. See you guys? I'm going to put a few lights on this side and slip the wire right down between those pieces of paper and so on and so forth. Just take your time because the paper is a little delicate now. It can be a little bit brittle. And then I'm going to tuck the rest of it right down in here, including the plug. And then you'll just have your plug coming out the top. Let's stick that there for now. And now what we're going to do is we're going to close the flaps. We're just going to add a little bit of hot glue right here and just pinch. You can use Velcro, you can use double-sided tape. And I'm not going to glue real heavy because in case I want to replace these lights with something different, I want to make sure that I can get these flaps open. So I'm going to use just the smallest amount, about the size of a pea. And then just pinch. Let that cool. Same thing with this side. Just a little bit of hot glue right there. And pinch down. Now I'm going to push my plug down in. Now when you hang it on the wall, you just plug right into that. You can take a piece of twine and glue it to the top right in here, or you can take a hook and just take your pokey stick and just make a hole. And you'll take your metal hook, just stick it right through. Be careful. Just kind of wiggle it back and forth till you get it hooked up. And now you have a hook. And there you go, guys. Oh my gosh, you guys, look how darling. Let's light it up and see what it looks like. You guys, oh my goodness. Look at that gorgeous glow. Wow, beautiful. Absolutely stunning. Love, love, love. Looks like little twinkly lights that are in there. That's gorgeous. Oh my goodness, look how beautiful. I want to see your stars. I want to see how they turned out. Can you believe that you made this out of cardstock and cinnamon and some silver paint, you guys? So cute, look at that. Oh my gosh, you guys, it looks like it's been in a barn for 100 years. Oh my goodness, so cute, you guys. I absolutely love how this turned out, you guys. Thank you for following along today. I hope you enjoyed this Faux Push Tin Star. I knew you could do it, and I want to see what your Push Tin Star looks like. You guys, let me know what color you guys chose to do, and I want to see it hanging in your house. So subscribe, follow along, because you don't want to miss the next tutorial. Some really cool stuff is coming your way. See you in the next one. Bye.